How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with Alex and Ryan. No, thanks you guys yesterday. We're right back at it today on Friday talking about Juan Soto. A little primer for you guys ahead of free agency and all the stuff that's going to unfold. Obviously, the news right now, Soto's the talk of the town. The Mets, the Dodgers, the Blue Jays. I heard 11 teams have already contacted Scott Boras about Juan Soto's availability. Now, all the things that he said, we've heard this once before. Aaron Judge said all of the same exact things 2 years ago. We're going to look at free agency. We're going to look at all the teams. No one's going to be left out. We're going to have all the good conversations. And he ended up being a Yankee for 10 years. So right now, if I'm the Yankees and I'm looking at the situation, the Yankees do have an advantage in this spot right now. They could tell Juan Soto, look, we're going to run back almost the same team with a couple of key upgrades. We're going to address the base running problems. We're going to address the defensive lapses. We're going to get better at key positions and key kind of situational, spots where they failed in the World Series, failed at times in the regular season. We're going to get better. But we're going to maintain a lot of what the core, that we've built here. But there are some, money opening up. We're going to have some financial flexibility. We're going to go into detail right now about the financial flexibility the Yankees are going to have in this instance. We're going to go into kind of in depth into Juan Soto's extension, what we think that will look like, but also the upgrades this team can make around him to further convince him not only can we pay you, but hell, we can make you a winner too. We can make you a World Series, maybe even a multi-time World Series winner with the corrections we have to make. The Yankees, I don't think people recognize just how bad we were in 2023 and how much better we were this year. The improvements that this team made from 2023 to 24 were astronomical, and I think people tend to forget just how, in the dumps we were. We had a outfield that was almost unplayable at times, and this team took a big step forward. Now they know what they have to correct. Now they know the situations where they have to get better. We saw the Dodgers laid out the whole game plan for us. One of the worst base running teams, one of the worst defensive teams when it comes to, putting the ball in play. If you put the ball in play enough, we will make mistakes. And that's exactly what happened and exactly why we lost. Now, the Yankees should have won game 1. They should have won game 5. This series should have been a lot different, but those mistakes end up paying off in negative ways. But, Ryan, looking at the primer here for Juan Soto, looking at the advantage I think the Yankees have, not only financially, we're going to talk about that, but also they have something to prove now. Juan Soto's coming off a World Series loss. He has a reason to come back and win one with this team. He will be forever a legend if he wins a World Series with the Yankees. He will be ingrained in the history books. There is nobody that people remember Yankee legends more than anybody else. He has a chance to be not only the face as Aaron Judge ages, but also somebody that his name will be engraved in Yankee legendary, in legends forever. He could be in that freaking outfield in Monument Park one day. That's what his future could look like. Do you think that weighs on him? Do you think that the Yankees do have an advantage? Do you think this is all about money?
I think it's going to come down to money. I think Juan Soto is going to sign with the team that offers the most money. Now, I think the thing with the Yankees is that if they match said offer, I think he'll stay a New York Yankee. Or if they're somewhat close to said offer, he'll end up a New York Yankee. If Soto gets 605 from the Mets and 600 from the Yankees, I think he'll end up a Yankee, right? If he gets 650 from the Mets and 550 from the Yankees, he'll be a Met, right? That's where it's at. The Yankees cannot afford to lose Juan Soto. There's no excuse, right? The process, this should go in this exact direction. The Yankees should open with a $500 million offer, because I know it's not going to get it done, but you need to make a competitive first offer. And then you go, all right, you're not taking this offer. Fine. Go get your offers from other teams, and then come back to us. Circle back to us, and we will match whatever offer you get. We will give you whatever offer is the top offer from another team. Once that happens, you probably sign Juan Soto at that point in time. My point is, there is no reason why the Yankees should not match the top offer on the market. Just none, right? Juan Soto is a generational player. I don't want to hear spread the wealth, go get Santander and Burns and this guy and that guy. No, right? They're not combined as good as Juan Soto. If they were, the numbers would show it. Actually, let me actually. So I think it was in an article. Somebody, I think it was Bob Clappish suggested that like the Yankees like have a backup plan, and it would probably include someone like Santander, and it would probably include somebody like Corbin Burns. Anthony Santander had 2.9 Baseball Reference WAR. Corbin Burns ended up with. I'm sorry that I'm loading this just now, but I figured I'd like to illustrate a point for the podcast about how spreading the wealth isn't always the best idea or the most productive. If I used F WAR, this would be close. I'm pretty sure Santander and Burns combined for like 6 F WAR, and Soto ended up with 8.1. Burns had 3.4 Baseball Reference WAR. Add that to 2.9, you've got 6.3. Juan Soto had 7.9. Burns and Santander will probably combine for $50 million total in annual average salary. Just go pay Juan Soto at that point, man. Go get Juan Soto. I don't see this crazy argument of, well, you could get Bregman and you get a pitcher. Like, okay, I can get players who, as a whole, impact the game less than Juan Soto. This is the New York Yankees. This is a 26-year-old player as well. You see, for lack of better terms, you hesitate a little bit when you offer a 29 or 30-year-old player a 6 or 7 year deal. You should. You do every single time. And then on top of that, Alex, we're talking about the fact that when it comes to Corbin Burns or Anthony Santander, they're not making you the money Juan Soto is if you're Hal Steinbrenner. Why would you make that financial investment to have your payroll shoot back up over $300 million and not sign Juan Soto? That's illogical, right? From a business standpoint, that's illogical. You're making less money than you did last year. Fan interest will be totally killed. The Mets will get so much fan interest. I mean, come on. Why are people acting like there is any world in which the Yankees improve on without Juan Soto or improve on a hypothetical roster with Juan Soto versus a team without Juan Soto? They have 228 estimated for their payroll in terms of millions, according to Fangraphs, and you can cut a lot of the estimated payroll too. You can cut Tim Mays at $4 million. You can cut Trent Grisham at $5.7 million. You can cut JT Brubaker at $2.275 million. You can do a lot. You can arguably, even if you really need to get desperate, you can move Trevino at $3.4 million and call up Carlos Narvaez and have him be your backup catcher and maybe acquire a minor league, free agent depth guy to kind of just shore up your minor league system. The Yankees have done a great job developing catchers, Alex. They don't have a shortage of catchers. Keep Ben Rice at catcher. Have him kind of go to AAA and focus on being a catcher and go out and get a real first baseman. There are ways to cut costs here. With just Brubaker, Grisham, Trevino, and Meza being moved off the roster, I mean, we're talking about nearly $15 million extra dollars to work with. You could sign Juan Soto to a $50 million a year contract, end up with a $278 million payroll, cut about $15 million more in payroll, end up, maybe you add a first base with that money. You think Christian Walker would sign maybe a 2-year, $17 million deal? Bam, you got first base fixed. Call up Caleb Durbin. You've got a cost-controlled infielder. Boom, that's fixed. You want to move even more money, and you can move Nestor off the roster if you need to. Nestor's set to make $7.7 million in 2025. If you want to go get a better starter and maybe move Nestor and, you sign a guy maybe to an $18 million a year contract, kind of like a Stroman, but hopefully they perform better than Stroman. And you're moving Nestor's money, realistically it only costs you $10, $11 million. So the Yankees are going to have a lower payroll than they did last year, but they can do it and still sign Juan Soto and still get better because there's so much bad money getting moved off the books. Don't have to pay Rizzo, don't have to pay Donaldson. I mean, come on. Like, this is a no-brainer. Pay Juan Soto whatever he asks for.
Agreed. So Ryan, listed those first couple of names, and you said it was equivalent to about $15 million, right? So what are those names again?
So the Yankees could cut. So they could cut Tim Meza for $4 million.
Meza. Okay.
They could cut Trent Grisham for $5.7 million. They can cut JT Brubaker for $2.75 million. That's already over. That's already in the $11 to $12 million range. Mm-hmm. If you need to get crazy here, you can again trade Jose Trevino, add $3.4 million. That's about 12. That's about $14 to $15 million. If you want to get even crazier, you can move John Birdie at $3.8 million, have Cabrera and Durbin be your kind of utility man infielders. That is an added, $3.8 million of estimated arbitration that you can remove from your roster in terms of payroll. I mean, we're getting close to the $20 million range here, right? Like, come on. I mean, and again, if you You want to, I mean, I think trading Nestor, if you were to like use the money to sign a first baseman, you'd probably just keep Nestor at that point, have him just keep the rotation as it is. But there are ways to move money off this team. There are like there are not a lot of expensive ARB guys, and the ones who are easy to move on from. I know Grisham at $5.7 million isn't bad for a fourth outfielder, but maybe you can sign a fourth outfielder for a $2 million deal. You know what I mean? Like yes, it's cutting corners in ways that you shouldn't have to cut corners, but at the same time, I mean, you are asking a team to pay Aaron Judge $40 million, Garrett Cole $36 million, and then Juan Soto $50 million. And I want to float a crazy idea out here. Do you think if Cole were to opt out, not that the Yankees would let him go, but that they and Cole could restructure the deal, maybe make it a 6-year deal, spread the money out a little more so they can open up a little more salary or salary space or whatever it may be? So instead of, it would be a 5-year deal at $36 million a year, it would be like a 6-year deal at $31 million a year. If you really want to, if you really want to get into the nooks and you really want to get into the weeds with it, there are a lot of ways the Yankees can open up money here. And I think it's crazy to suggest that, like, they're so tight up in payroll. The Mets have to add 3 starting pitchers. I mean, Severino, Quintana, and Manaya combined for, I think it was 540 innings with sub-3 ERAs each. That's a lot of production to replace. Alex, imagine if they replace Cole, Rodon, and Cortez next year. Imagine we have to replace all of their production next season. Yeah, you'd be screwed. And I'd argue the Mets got more value out of their 3 guys than we got out of our top 3 guys because Cole missed half the year. So there's no excuse for the Yankees. There's none at all. No. I mean, there's a lot of money to move here.
Yeah, and I just want to, so like you've already opened up with just those first couple of guys you mentioned, $18.8 million in arbitration guys. So let me just make something very clear here. The Yankees were already paying Juan Soto $31 million in the final year of arbitration. So they have already accounted for that amount of money. The difference is about, let's say, $20 million. To get to $50 million per year. Everyone's going to say $622 million or $700 million. He's not going to get to 700, but let's say he gets to 620. Let's just estimate $620 million over 14 years. When he turns 40 years old, that contract will expire. And I'm sure they'll build outs into the contract too, or, over time, contracts get even more expensive. If he's 32, he can opt out and maybe get even more. Who knows, how they go about building that contract. That's for them to decide. But the difference, the margin between $31 million and $50 million, which is like what his salary will probably look like, is $19 million. Ryan, you just gave me $18.8 million right there, but I'll give you an even easier solution. Just decline Anthony Rizzo's club option. There's $17 million in luxury tax salary right there.
That gets baked into the Fangraphs estimated payroll to clarify. But yes, they should 1,000,000%.
Yes.
There's no chance they should give Rizzo that club option. None. And also, there's another club option, Lou Trevino at $5 million. I know that's baked into this as well. Absolutely not. Absolutely not, police. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I mean, look, right now I'm looking at just the spot rack payroll, adjusted payroll at 309. You have, and I think it's important to also factor in contracts that will be coming off the books in the future. You have $17.5 million coming off from Marcus Stroman after next year, right? So you have to account for that in 2026. You're going to have a ton of money opening up there. 2027, DJ LeMahieu's contract comes off the books, $15 million there. So there are $15, $20 million chunks of annual salary coming off the books as we go. Then you have $32 million coming off the books in 2028 from Giancarlo Stanton. So the Yankees are actually positioned really, really well to handle this contract because they've already cleared the money for $31 million that they have already been paying Soto this year. They have to make up a $20 million margin. Rizzo's contract, the club option there, that makes up pretty much all of it. Not to mention Gleyber Torres, who's probably going to end up departing as well at $14.2 million in the final year of arbitration this year. And Tommy Kahnle, who's making $5.75 million this year. If you combine all of that salary, you're already looking at Juan Soto's annual contract and probably going out and getting a Christian Walker or maybe bringing in a Josh Naylor or bringing in whoever it is you want at first base to fill that position. It could be Yandy Diaz, who knows. The Yankees are more than positioned to financially handle the contract of Juan Soto. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, not to mention the $18.8 million you mentioned in arbitration salary, right? So like that you could clear theoretically. And then you have Alex Verdugo, I haven't even mentioned, at $8 million that he's making. That's coming off the books too. So The Yankees have a ton of money that is about to free up here. A ton. There is no excuse. The $620 million, don't let that scare you. That's the duration of 14 years of earnings. $50 million for Juan Soto, and you win multiple championships. The financial reward the Yankees are going to have because of that, because they kept the superstar, the jerseys, the World Series, the playoff runs, the exciting moments, the people tuning in. It's going to make that number look like a joke, right? In the future, when some of these stars, like when Bobby Witt ends up hitting free agency way down the line, he might be getting more than him because of the contracts and inflation rate, elevating these deals. So, and the media rights and whatever it might be, baseball, younger people starting to kind of come back and fall in love with this game, which is what we hope and really want for the sport. But Ryan, I don't see an avenue where the Yankees cannot financially afford Juan Soto, and people and the Mets fans in the comments saying, we have a billionaire owner. Guys, Hal Steinbrenner is also a billionaire. He owns one of the most profitable organizations on the planet, one of the most valuable teams on earth. His net worth is $1.5 billion, not to mention his assets that are tied up like the Yankees, right? So you're talking apples to oranges in terms of Steve Cohen has a lot of money, but he also has to field a team, and he doesn't want to be paying well over that luxury tax threshold, because the tax of 60% over that third luxury tax threshold is stupendous amount of money. Even Steve Cohen's not insane. You know what I mean? Like, he'll pay. This could be a really competitive bidding war for Juan Soto. Do not get it twisted. It's going to be really, really aggressive. But the Yankees have such a nice youth strategy here, right? Anthony Volpe's pre-arbitration. Austin Wells is pre-arbitration. Jazz Chisholm is still under contract for 2 more years until he's a free agent in 2027. They have Jason Dominguez as a rookie coming in to fill left field next year. They have a farm system full of pitchers that they drafted last year, more draft capital to be honest, and then Spencer Jones, who could be a really nice trade piece if they want to go out and get another pitcher, or if they could use him as that fourth outfielder in the future and just or maybe utilize him if Judge becomes a DH one day. Who knows? There's so many different possibilities here with all the talent they have. Ben Rice could be another solution if they want to go down that route as a cheaper alternative at first base, or as your backup catcher making next to nothing. You know what I mean? Like, this is a situation, guys, where the Yankees have, and not to mention the pitchers, Luis Gil is pre-arbitration, right? Clark Schmidt, arbitration. Our bullpen is dirt cheap Clay Holmes coming off the books. Luke Weaver is making $2 million next year on a club option. You know what I mean? This team has a very good situation financially, because of the decisions they made last year and the club options they built into some of these deals and the ones that they're going to reject. So, Ryan, I'll ask you this. When it comes to the youth movement here, the young guys being ushered in, the young pre-arbitration players, how important is that to the Yankees' future, affording guys like Soto? Because you could build a team around Judge and Soto, make it to the World Series, and you were arguing all morning, I saw you on Twitter, talent is all you need to win a World Series sometimes. The Yankees should have won, right? They had the talent. They just have to clean up some of the other metrics. If they were an average base running team and an average defensive infield team, they probably win the World Series. It's that simple. If they go out and get a good defensive second baseman, then maybe it's a prospect. Maybe it's Caleb Durbin. Maybe you reset there. 9.9% strikeout rate in 82 games in AAA last year. 135 WRC+. This is a good player, guys. I don't know how he is defensively. We'll talk about that in a future episode and kind of break down what he doesn't know. Ryan, you know a lot more about him than I do. But in a situation like the Yankees have, how important is the youth movement to ushering in this next generation of stars like Juan Soto and the big paychecks, but also having cost-controlled pre-arbitration assets that keep that price tag down long-term?
So I'd argue the biggest reason why the Yankees, not the biggest reason, I mean, it's a little unfair. I think one of the reasons why the Yankees have kind of, they haven't been, for lack of better terms, the Yankees in terms of just throwing money at like the top player in each market is because they've made some tough misses in terms of free agency, right? Look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Carlos Rodon is this garbage pitcher who doesn't belong in a major league field, but you're paying $27 million for a guy who was a league average starter over 32 starts, right? 175 innings with a 3.96 ERA. That's not worth $27 million. And year one was a negative WAR season. So, he, over the first 2 years of his deal, has not provided the value that you would hope for, especially considering that the first 2 years of a pitching contract should be the ones where you get the most value out of said player. Looking at, Marcus Stroman, $18.5 million. You paid $18.5 million for below average run prevention over 154 innings. That's not worth $18 million, right? It's not. It's not. And what I will say about both those players, hey, at least they're on the roster. I mean, Aaron Hicks is dead money. He's making $10 million a year towards the luxury tax. Giancarlo Stanton's here, and he's, I think, made up for what has objectively been not great yield of WAR per dollar. I don't really care because he hits in the postseason. Again, that's not very analytical. I get it, and I'm a very data-centric guy. Blah blah blah. I know, but honestly, Matt, I don't care, right? Like I care about he helps you win a championship.
He made up for it.
Exactly. Like I kind of couldn't care less.
He's a weird player now.
Right.
He can lock in what he wants to.
Exactly. Rizzo's 2-year, $40 million contract that we gave him for the 2023 and 2024 seasons, I'm not saying it was supposed to fail. I'm not pinning this on process even. But yeah, that's $40 million you basically lit on fire. I mean, I could give you the numbers he had over this contract. Neither season he posted an above average WRC plus. He had 0.6 WAR and didn't play more than 99 games in either season. Right? He burned $40 million.
He was very, very underwhelming in a lot of the metrics that we wanted. He just got older, man. What are you going to do? He's a great locker room guy. It's not enough. We have enough good locker room guys. Rizzo's, his locker room rah-rah speech is not win us a World Series at the end of the day. And I love him as a guy. Don't get me wrong. He was a great player. He's just past his prime. It happens.
Yeah, he got hurt. He aged. It happens. LeMahieu's making $15 million for the next 2 years. His 6-year, $90 million contract has not worked out, right? It has not been the kind of deal you'd hoped it to be. So, all of this to say, that's a lot of money that you're either A, you're getting some value, but not the value you're looking for, or B, has basically been set on fire. That can't keep happening, right? You need to avoid that. And do you know who's the surest bet to make sure that your money doesn't get set on fire? Juan freaking Soto. I could see a world where Corbin Burns is not a great contract in 3 years. He's a pitcher, so he's one pitch away from missing a year and a half of baseball. And number two, his strikeout rates have declined every single year over the last 4 years. Yeah, that's a pitcher who could suck, right? That's a guy who, not suck, but that's a guy who could be paid $30 million to provide you, 30 starts with a 3.8 ERA in 2 years. And that wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world. Anthony Santander, good ball player, man. He's fun, but I mean, Alex, he was a 3-WAR player in a year where he was hitting 40 home runs, right? So this is the best year of his career. He was a 3-WAR player, right? So in his best year, he's a 3-WAR player, and you're gonna pay $20 million for a guy who could just as easily. Yeah. Not a great offensive year, just a decent,
horrible defender as well.
Right? Not a great defender. I mean, Alex, is it unreasonable to say he could have, let's say, a 105 WRC plus, not play great defense?
Oh, no, he will.
I think he's a good player.
That's what happens when the Yankees get guys like this. They regress.
Right,
I get your point.
It's not a sure thing that he's going to net it's not a sure thing that Anthony Santander will be a good or better than average baseball player next year. It is almost a guarantee that Juan Soto will at least be an all-star caliber player because he is one every year. He has one of the highest floors in the league, and he has one of the highest ceilings in the league.
And he's done it every year.
Right. There's no reason to justify spreading the wealth for players who are not these uber guaranteed or guys who are regressing or guys who are 30 or guys who are this, that. I'm not saying to say 30-year-olds shouldn't get paid. I'm not saying to say Anthony Santander sucks. My point isn't Corbin Burns sucks or whatever it is. I think these are good ball players. Yeah, I can give you a realistic scenario where they're not worth the money. I cannot give you a realistic scenario where Juan Soto over the next 4 or 5 years doesn't yield $80 to $90 million in terms of player value. You know what I mean? Let me read before I end my point. I know I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I think it's just so important for people to understand how valuable Juan Soto is, not just from a baseball standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint. He netted $65.1 million in terms of just player value this year. Over the course of his career, the first 7 years of his career, he netted $290.4 million. That is including a year where he only played 40-something games because of the freaking pandemic. So if you want to extrapolate that, we're probably talking about a player who would have netted, I don't know, like $320 million of player value or $340 million of player value over 7 years. And I'd argue this year showed that he is entering his prime. He has not peaked yet. This was his peak year. This was the best year of his career.
Yep.
More could come. Who's to say this guy can't net you $500 million in player value over the next 6-7 years, right? Playing in this ballpark, playing that right field that isn't that hard, 100% can net you $500 million in 7 years. 7 years, Alex. Do you know what the price of a player as good as him is going to be in 7 years? We're going to be talking about $1 billion players, $1.5 billion players. Come on. Like, I get so frustrated hearing this. Well, Hal's got to have a number. Well, this, and that. No, he doesn't have to have a number. The number is whatever Juan Soto asks for. That's the number that Hal Steinbrenner should offer not offer immediately. I know how negotiations work, but I'm saying the number that Juan Soto ends up signing for is the number that the Yankees should offer. If they match the Mets offer and they decide to still go to the Mets, that would stun me, but at that point you can't. I don't know. Maybe he just wants to be a Met.
You just lose the battle,
right?
Yeah.
You just lose that battle. But if you're not matching the top offer, you aren't doing your fan base a service. This fan base deserves. They deserve Juan Soto. This fan base deserves an owner who's going to make that investment. This fan base deserves the utmost commitment from this organization, because when it comes to when the Yankees ask their fans to pay $1,000 for World Series tickets, the Yankee fan base shows up and they pay $1,000 for tickets.
It was much more than that.
Right. We are asking them to live up to their side of the financial commitment. Oh, $700 million for a player sounds crazy. $1.2 thousand for standing room sounds crazy. And people still paid for it. So there's no excuse. You are judged on your ability to win the World Series. You are judged on the effort you put in to win the World Series. And your effort will be not good enough. It will be an F of an offseason if they don't bring him back. There are no excuses. I refuse to make any excuses. It is money. No one is more profitable, and no one will benefit more from signing Juan Soto than the New York Yankees. You and I will not see a dime of the profits that they will from signing Juan Soto. It is BS and it's all types of bad if they don't sign Juan Soto. They must, and they must.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the argument that you made before about people are saying, well, you can spread the money. You can go get Santander, you can get Corbin Burns, you get this guy, that guy. This isn't freaking Moneyball, guys. Like, there are players that simply transcend the Moneyball aspect of you can spread out the wealth and collect the WAR. You know what I mean? Like, that's the concept here. We can reallocate the run prevention. We can reallocate the RBIs and reallocate the home runs. You cannot do that with a player like Juan Soto. You can't do it. Why? Because he plays every single day for his whole career, right? This guy does not miss time, knock on wood. When you spread the wealth between 1, 2, 3 players, the probability of injury, the probability one guy's not going to live up to the expectations is astronomical, right? The Yankees can't even hit on Carlos Rodon. They can't even hit on Marcus Stroman. They can't hit on DJ LeMahieu. They can't hit on some of these big investments. Why on earth do you think that 3 separate players would amount to the same value as Juan Soto? It's not realistic. This is not the Oakland Athletics in the 1990s, guys. And they didn't win a championship. You know what I mean? Like, you cannot replace Juan Soto. There's players that transcend this ability to compensate with detailed metrics. These types of reallocation of statistics. You can't do it with guys like this. You can do it with guys that have major flaws in their games. Maybe they don't have enough contact hitting. Maybe they don't walk enough. This guy walks more than he strikes out every year. You know what I mean? That is so hard to accomplish. It's unbelievable. You know what I mean? A guy that walks more than he strikes out every year. That is so rare to find. Not to mention he's coming off a career high 41 home run season with a 109 RBIs. Like, the guy was unbelievable, 180 WRC plus. This dude, with him and Judge, you're talking about the best tandem, one of the best tandems in the sport. You know what I mean? Like, that tandem will put you in a position to win a World Series every year, every single year. The Yankees had a lot of flaws this season, and they made it to the World Series. They had Rizzo basically doing nothing half the time as a major defensive liability. They had Alex Verdugo, who barely hit, guys. He barely hit, right? He had 83 WRC plus in the playoffs and the regular season. He was bad, 17% worse than the average bad, right? Third base for most of the year was horrible. Jazz Chisholm in the playoffs was not very good. Right, he picked up the last game or two, had some clutch hits as he settled in. But now these guys have experience in the playoffs, right? Gleyber Torres, phenomenal. First half of the year, horrible. Defensively, horrible. Anthony Volpe got hot in the postseason. Austin Rose was horrible offensively in the playoffs. Horrible. Our pitching was horrible. I mean, aside from Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon was horrible. Clark Schmidt was bad. He had a good first start, but it was, got unlucky in the ALDS. It is what it is. Luis Hill, they asked him to do a job. Nestor Cortez gets injured right before the season. We had a couple of, inopportune situations arise, but this team, if they make the right decisions, you bring back Soto, you upgrade first base, you find a better defensive second baseman, maybe you bring back Gleyber if you really want to. You probably have the financial resources to do that if you want to. I'm thinking probably $18 million per season is realistic for Gleyber at this point in time. That's not the end of the world. Eventually, DJ LeMahieu, his contract expires in 2 years, and that money basically ends up being filled by Gleyber's contract anyway, theoretically speaking. And then you have Marcus Stroman's money coming off the books next year, or in 2026, and that money's the same. You can justify it in your head all sorts of different ways. But the truth of the matter is this. You could run back almost the identical team next year, make it to a World Series, and maybe you win, right? Maybe the Dodgers lose going to the World Series, and they lose in the or the NLCS, or whatever it might be, and you face a weaker team, and you get lucky. Who knows? You could run back almost the identical team and still be a really competitive squad in 2025. But the Yankees know what they have to improve on. The defense, they got to improve on the base running, and they got to keep their best player. He is 26 years old. 26. I don't think people understand. Well, I'm not going to say I don't think. I think most of you guys understand. Let me make that clear. I think 99.9% of the Yankee fan base understands that this is a 26-year-old kid with the capacity to lead us to a World Series. And by a lot of accounts, he's the face of this organization right now. You know what I mean? Aaron Judge, I love the guy. He was unbelievable during the regular season. He led us there. He's our captain. But I think there's a good portion of the fan base that sees Juan Soto as the face right now. Maybe that's crazy, Ryan, but I don't think that's crazy. I think a lot of people see Juan Soto as the guy that stepped up in the playoffs, led this team, led the charge, and he was the one that really commanded this offense in the playoffs. Right? He came up big, 3-run home run, 10th inning, tied 2-2 against the Cleveland Guardians. What do you think? I think Soto might be just as close to the face of the franchise's Judges right now.
I think one guy will hang his head in shame the entire winter. Like, not publicly, but privately. Because let's be honest, Yankees win the World Series if Aaron Judge has a great World Series. If Aaron Judge in the World Series.
He doesn't drop that freaking ball, dude. He doesn't drop that ball. We're playing today.
I think that once they went down 3-0, they weren't going to win the World Series. That's how I kind of envisioned it. But as you meant, you never know if you sent it back to LA, right? But I'm always going to be haunted by, in game one, Blake Trinan threw a fastball over the middle of the plate and a slider over the middle of the plate that Aaron Judge should have, with a big spot, needs to be Aaron Judge. And on top of that, he was up because they intentionally walked Soto. I'm not saying Juan Soto would have gotten a hit off Blake Trinan. You can't guarantee that. But he took
They did it all offseason, all postseason.
Right? He took the
Teams
bat.
did it all postseason.
Yeah, he took the bat out of Soto's hands.
Every time. The bat. Guardians did it too.
Can't happen. Cannot have a situation where you're getting the bat taken out of Juan Soto's hands because you're not doing your job. I'm like Aaron Judge. This is a quote from an article at the end of last year. Is like, I've got some ideas in reference to making sure that trying to get his voice heard in terms of player acquisitions or whatever it may be, or what data they value, all that stuff. I've got some ideas on who this team's face is, right? Who's their leader in the postseason? Currently on the roster, Stanton in my eyes, right? When they needed a hero, it was Stanton. That's what a leader is, right? Show up and do a job. Not saying Aaron Judge doesn't have leadership qualities. He wouldn't be named the freaking captain of the Yankees if he wasn't, or didn't have those. And then Juan Soto, he's what he did in the postseason. It's kind of hard to ignore, right? It was superb. He was everything. He was any positive adjective you want to throw at him. He was everything to this team. So you kind of imagine what this team would have done in the postseason if Soto wasn't here and it was the Judge and Stanton show, and Stanton would have showed, and Judge probably wouldn't have still, right? Like, does Judge show up if Soto isn't here? I don't know. Like, I think that's stupid. He'd probably get knocked out in the DS or the CS, right? Kind of like every other year. Because the difference was having Juan Soto. The starting pitching, as you mentioned, wasn't like leaps and bounds better than previous teams. I think they got more consistent starting pitching out of the 2022 team. Tyon gave them 5 innings of 1-run ball. Cole was really good, as he was this postseason. Although I'd argue he's a little more dominant because he was striking dudes out in 22. Cortez had some decent starts in there, although he really struggled in the CS. Severino had he was decent in the playoffs. He allowed 3 runs in each start he had. He was solid. He was good enough. The bullpen, right? Bullpen this year was probably better than years past. The bullpen this year was unbelievable in the postseason, which is funny because this bullpen looked like it was going to suck halfway through the year. Mark Leiter Jr., man. Mark Leiter Jr., playoff riser, Mark Leiter Jr. But the big difference is having Juan Soto. That was the difference right then and there. He was the reason why they were not like other Yankee teams. Before anybody in the comments goes, well, he lost in the World Series, they're just like every other Yankee team. No, they're not just like every other Yankee team. Every other Yankee team had a team that clearly outclassed them. You know what I mean? The Astros outclassed them every year. The Rays outclassed them in 2020. They had teams that just outclassed them, that were just clearly the better team. This team lost because of stupid mistakes and Aaron Judge not showing up, right? They weren't outclassed, if that makes sense. They lost the series they should have won. I think that right there is strictly because of Juan Soto's existence, and because of that, again, yeah, he's the face of this team, in my opinion. He's the chosen one to this team. You know what I mean? He's the promised one. He is the Jeter to Judge's A-Rod, if that makes sense. A-Rod was the better player. Jeter was the face. A-Rod better player. Jeter more better, the face, the guy who everyone associates with the dynasty, that kind of thing. That's what Soto is kind of his dynamic and Judge's dynamic right now. I hope Judge has the 09 A-Rod run, but he had a chance to here and he didn't. So, I'm just, again, Aaron Judge is a great player. Love him. Still one of my favorite players, but he certainly made a dent to his legacy, and I'm definitely not going to sit here and pretend like he didn't. He failed. Aaron Judge failed the New York Yankees. So, yeah, Juan Soto didn't. Juan Soto got the New York Yankees to the World Series. I'm sorry. He's the guy.
He is the guy, and he will continue to be the guy as long as we are. I mean, look, 26 years old, guys, I still don't think people understand how young that is to be this good, to be that talented, to be that clutch. This dude just walked into a world. I mean, he's already won a World Series. He's been to 2. You know what I mean? You can't replicate that level of experience for a 26 years old kid. You know what I mean? That is... Look, the Yankees, if George was sitting here right now and saw Juan Soto, a 26-year-old World Series winning guy, just helped fueled this team to a World Series appearance for the first time in over a decade, Soto would be a Yankee already for the next 14 years, right? That's just a simple reality. He makes you a perennial contender. If you do not sign Juan Soto, this Yankee team is not going to make it to another World Series probably for a long time, right? Because Anthony Santander is not going to provide the same production. Corbin Burns pitches every 5-6 days. And as you said, strikeout numbers are decreasing. It would be a astronomical mistake to reallocate the funds for Juan Soto to 2 players who are aging, older, and less productive and consistent. Okay? You would be going down a catastrophic path. They need to make the easy decision here. We've broken down the financials. They have enough money, enough flexibility. They have money coming off the books throughout the duration of that contract. They'll have $15 million coming off the books from DJ LeMahieu per season. They'll have $18.5 million coming off per season from Marcus Stroman. They'll have Carlos Rodon's contract expiring in 4 years. They'll have Giancarlo Stanton's contract expiring in 4 years with $22 million in luxury tax salary, $32 million cap hits every year coming off the books. They have a stupendous amount of money that will be clear halfway through over the next 4 years. Not even halfway through Soto's future extension, right? There is no excuse. None. Zero. If the Yankees let him walk, we cannot forgive them because it is literally inexcusable. They have the money. They can clear the talent. They could they could put Ben Rice at first base and still make it to a World Series. That's how confident I am that Juan Soto will keep this team a contender for the next decade. You know what I mean? It's that simple. That simple. And the fact of the matter is they don't even need to do that. They can go out and get another first baseman. They can go out and upgrade third base. They can go out and get another starting pitcher. They can trade assets from there. Juan Soto being on your roster, Ryan, allows you to trade from your farm system without blinking an eye. You know what I mean? And I think that people don't necessarily understand, like, you are able to leverage Spencer Jones. You're able to leverage some of your pitching and development guys that you're developing in the system right now. Whoever it might be. You have such a better foot to stand on to say we can trade out of our farm and feel good about it because we have a guy that's going to fuel a World Series run every single year no matter what. You know what I mean? Him and Judge, that combination will do it. Right? One of them the regular season hero, the other one being the postseason hero. They can do that. So it's an easy decision for me. Whatever Steve Cohen wants to bid, eventually he's going to look at his team and say, we need so much more. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting up to a level of financial allocation to Juan Soto, $50 million, $55 million. We need 3 starting pitchers. We need to figure out what's going on at first base. We need to figure out this. You're losing 35, 40-plus home runs a year from Pete Alonso, dude. You know, you're losing so much production in the slugging departments from Pete Alonso. You know, you're losing the current face of your franchise, aside from Lindor, right? Like, you now have to replace that production, but you're adding the Soto production. But then you have to replace 3 starting pitchers that, by the way, as you said before, I think most importantly, they outperform their contracts exponentially. Manaea, Severino, and Quintana, they outperform their contracts exponentially. They are not going to get the same performance to them. In fact, they're going to be way more expensive now because of that performance. You're not going to get the same. You're not going to be able to replicate that, right? They have a lot of problems, a lot more than the Yankees do. So that's kind of the situation at hand, man. Like, I think that we've 41 minutes worth of broken down why this is a easy decision for the Yankees. If they fail to pull off this extension, if they fail to figure it out, it better be because he just decided to go somewhere else. And they offered him the exact same amount of money. The only way the Yankees should lose this is if he just didn't want to be here. That's it. But I can't imagine that's the case. He had a great time here. How many times did he say the Yankee fans were the best in the world? How many times did he say he's loved the brotherhood they've created? I know this is a business thing. He's not giving anyone any leverage. He's being honest, balanced, fair, and I think that's great for him, right? That's what players should do. Aaron Judge did it, but he wanted to be a Yankee. Now he's the captain a year later. You know what I mean? So I want to hear your perspectives down below in the YouTube comments. If you're a Mets fan here thinking you have a billionaire owner, surprise, surprise, so do the Yankees. They have more than enough money. If you listened all the way through this episode, you guys don't hold an advantage here, right? Like, you have the same probability as the Yankees, if not slightly less, right? Second thing is, this Yankee team is positioned really, really nicely to win long term, and they have a lot of cost control pieces under contract already, and a lot of youth being ushered in. Really good youth, by the way. Jason Dominguez, this guy could be special, and he's buddies. He's friends with Juan Soto. They would be good friends, for the rest of their careers probably. Jason Dominguez, pre-arbitration, his quality, learning from Juan Soto every day. I mean, guys, come on. Like, talk about, you could be looking at the best outfield we've seen in a long time. A long, 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 long time. So I'm curious to see how you guys think about what we've broken down here. I know we went into very, very, very much detail about this whole situation. There'll be plenty more to come as the offseason, the winter progresses here. We're already in November 1st. 2 months from now, the winter meeting's coming up. It's going to be hot, heavy. We're going to be excited. We'll be reporting on everything, all the rumors and whatnot, circulating around this team and ways to improve the roster moving forward. But as always, my friends, thank you for tuning into Fireside Yankees. Appreciate you always. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.